What is happening, comic fans? Welcome to the channel. I'm Mark. This is Legion of Comics, and today we're going to be trying to answer the hard question. We're going to be going deep on the character that nobody knows his name, and that's none other than this guy. Is he Shazam? Is he Captain Marvel? Who knows? He's been both. He's neither. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and we're going to do that right after this. This video is sponsored by none other than Big Time Collectibles. Be sure to hit them up at bigtimecollectibles.com and follow them on the social medias. And if you need anything cleaned or pressed, hit up our good friend Justin over on Instagram. Let him know you found him via the channel or hit him with the promo code WeAreLegion and take advantage of that special offer for you, the viewer of this video. The links to the sponsors are in the description of all my videos. Don't miss out on that. All right, so let's get into it. So this character in question, Shazam, Captain Marvel, he has been around for a long time. He's been in and out of comics and on television, and most recently he's been in live action films in the DCU, and he has another movie, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, coming out right around the corner. So I thought it would be interesting to take a look at this character, look at where he's been, look at some interesting facts about him and some wild ones as well, and see if we can figure out the mystery of who is he? What's his name? Does he have a name? So let's kick it off. So that's the question we're going to be answering today. Who am I? With none other than the Big Red Cheese himself. And he first was introduced to comic books. He was created in 1939 by writer Bill Parker and artist C.C. Beck. He didn't see publication until 1940 in Whiz Comics issue number 2, where he blew up on the scene, and in a big way as well. So this character was actually bestowed his powers from the wizard Shazam. Take notes, write it down. That's important. The wizard Shazam, the old man with the white beard, the wizard right there, his name is Shazam. He meets a kid named Billy Batson and bestows the powers of Shazam on this child. So when he speaks the name of the wizard Shazam, he gets hit with a bolt of lightning and becomes the world's mightiest mortal, at the time known as Captain Marvel. IW, Captain Marvel, right there. The wizard Shazam dubs him Captain Marvel. He speaks the magic word Shazam, which is actually an acronym and a breakdown of his power set. The S is for the wisdom of Solomon, the H for the strength of Hercules, the A for the stamina of Atlas, Z, the power of Zeus, A, the courage of Achilles, and lastly the M for the speed of Mercury. Through my name, the wizard says, you are given the powers of these 6 mighty heroes. So right there, it's established in concrete. The wizard is Shazam. He is Captain Marvel. So this is how it starts. That was not convoluted at all. It doesn't take long to get there. But it is important to note that Captain Marvel was so popular at the time. He exploded on the scene. He was rivaling Superman and outselling Superman sales. And outselling comic books isn't all he beat the Boy Scout to. He actually beat him to the silver screen. He was so popular that the first ever live action superhero was Captain Marvel. And it was in a 1941 serial called The Adventures of Captain Marvel, starring Tom Taylor. He's the very first comic book hero ever. He meets the wizard, he speaks the word, he becomes Captain Marvel, he saves the day. I believe he was fighting off the wizard in that old serial. But it didn't take long because he was created in 39, hit the pages in 40, hit the silver screen in 41, and right behind that is when the legal trouble happened. So in 1941, at the time it was called Detective Comics. It would go on to be called National, and then it would go on even farther to become DC Comics. So DC Comics sued them for copyright infringement on Superman. They were claiming that Captain Marvel was just a direct ripoff of Superman, and this stayed in litigation for 7 years. The judge did slam the gavel and decide that yes, it is in fact infringement, but they didn't say that the character is a rip on Superman, but the stories were his feats, the things that he would accomplish, the battles he would have. But the crazy curveball was they also looked at Detective Comics and said, well, it was National at this time. They looked at National and said, this is actually negligence on y'all's part, that y'all abandoned the copyrights on the Superman comic strips and you actually don't have a leg to stand on. So if they would have had the proper copyrights in place, they would have won this out, but they didn't. So in 1951, after a long legal battle, slammed the gavel again and says, we're ruling in the favor of Fawcett. So they beat out DC, but DC wasn't going to give up yet. because right then the following year they appealed. National came right back and appealed the courts, and they kicked it down to the smaller courts, and they determined that the copyright, the kind of weak copyrights that they had on Superman were in fact valid. They interpreted it a little bit differently, and the Cap stories were infringing on the Superman story. So Fawcett ended up settling out of court. So that was a huge hit for Fawcett. So at that point, on August 4th, and like moving down the road in 1953, the troubles continue. Fawcett was seeing a decline in sales, as was most of the comic industry across the board post-war, but it just got bad. And with a $400,000 settlement to DC, it was just rough. They started the slow process of shutting down, and they shut down their comics division, started selling off some characters to one place or another. Many of the creators jumped ship, many famous creators, some of which even went right over to DC, where they would later see this character and get to work on him again, because that's where this character is inevitably going to end up right after. So it's important to note that in the midst of all of this, in 1967, Marvel Comics, in the booming Silver Age, where they're hitting their stride finally with the Fantastic Four, rolling out the Avengers, you got Spider-Man on the scene, they introduced their own character by the name of Captain Marvel, and Marvel Comics was on top of it with their copyrights and licensings and stuff. So while all of this was going on with Fawcett in DC, Marvel swooped in and copyrighted the character's name for their character. So in June of 1972, Fawcett still owning the character Captain Marvel, DC starts licensing it so that they can publish him in their magazines and their comics. There was some catches to it, though. They could not do it as Captain Marvel, so they put it on the cover as Shazam. They didn't want to confuse the readers with one or the other. So the name of the book was actually Shazam, but they put a tagline right under it, the original Captain Marvel. So at this point is where we're getting convoluted. We have Shazam on the cover, especially new readers are going to look at that cover, see the name of Shazam, see a picture of the guy next to the word Shazam, and then they read the original Captain Marvel. So you get some context. So if you're not actually reading inside the pages, you don't really have the clearest picture. And it didn't take long before Marvel starts sending cease and desist letters over to DC. Like, y'all got to shut this down now. The original Captain Marvel, really, even if he is, that's still a cheap shot. These companies were going at it back and forth all the time. It's some great storytelling and some cool stuff from comics history. But this was a fun one, definitely. So Marvel hit him with the cease and desist, and it stood. So they had to. So in issue number 15 in 1974, instead of the original Captain Marvel, they changed it to the World's Mightiest Mortal. So at that point, Captain Marvel was off the cover of the book. It's just Shazam. You have to buy the book and read the book to get any context, unless you're already familiar with this character, which plenty of people were. He was a big deal character. And not only was it this book, so Marvel like really laid it on. They couldn't put it on the book. You couldn't have it on like merchandising, like toys and stuff. It would all have to say Shazam. And it was even apparent in 1974 when they had another turn on the big screen, but this time it was the big screen in your homes. So we had a television show starring Michael Gray playing Captain Marvel titled Shazam. So just like the comic book, you have a character named one thing and the title of your property completely different. So it's really just laying on to the confusion for those that aren't exactly new readers or new watchers. You actually have to get invested in it. Just on face value, you're like, oh, that's Shazam. Just like today, you see a trailer for the movie Shazam, like, oh, there's Shazam. No, it's the Wizard. That's the Wizard. So this went on for a while in comics. Like, he started chugging. He was in Crisis. He had his own 80s comic, as you can see, called Shazam, and then rolled into the 90s, The Power of Shazam, still as Captain Marvel, and then into the 2000s as Shazam. And it wasn't until 2011 that DC finally said enough is enough. And in 2011, they completely rebranded it out and gave up trying to call him Captain Marvel at all, possibly facing more legal trouble. Hell, DC's rights to this character even dipped into the public domain a few years back for just a brief period. So they were just terrible at holding on to these rights to this character. It's been a confusing mess ever since. But in 2011, they rebranded and just quit with the whole Captain Marvel thing. There's like, we're going to go past it. We're just going to, it's a thing of the past at this point, and now we're just going to move forward. So at this point, what's his name? It's not Captain Marvel. It's firmly established that the Wizard is Shazam. He speaks the name of the Wizard to turn his powers on. So is it Captain Marvel? Is it Shazam? It's neither. So what do we do from here? Where do we go? If it was me, like they clearly have a nickname. Like they've been saying it, especially in the movies, in Black Adam film, in the Shazam one, they've been saying the Wizard's champion, his champion. Just naming him the champion, that's a little vague. But you could just call him the captain. Why don't we just call him the captain? Captain. Something. We have to name this character. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you would name this character. What would you do with it? Did you know about his history? I would love some feedback. I'd love to hear what you think of this character. It's definitely a fun one. These characters have a more interesting past than we tend to think they will, but I would go with the captain. It's close enough to what he already was. It's not confusing. It's like people probably call that as a nickname anyway. So leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you would call this character moving forward. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit that join button, become a member of the Legion. Until next time, as always, I'm Mark, but we are Legion.